and welcome to another episode. In today's episode, I am going to be talking about CSS Borders. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so to get started with CSS Borders, the first thing that I want you guys to do is to visit w3schools.com. As you may know, that's the website that we have been using so far to teach you CSS. So we're gonna go all the way down to the section that it's called CSS Borders. And I also have already opened the file that we have been working with so far. I have my Visual Studio Code open here. And what we're going to do this time is clear this up. We're going to clear the CSS style sheet, and I'm also going to clear the body section of my HTML document. Okay, so once this is saved, and I'm gonna make sure that everything is saved properly. I'm gonna hit refresh, and there you go. Now we have a clean website where we can work with borders. Okay, so going back here to CSS Borders, I want you to go ahead. Let's first take a look and see what CSS Borders is. Okay, so CSS Border, it's a property that allows you to specify the style, width, and color of an element's border. Okay, now here you can see some examples. This is a content, and this is the border of the content. This is another content, and this is the border of the content. As you can see, it's only a red line, but it's actually not just a red line. That's the border of the element. And you can also have rounded borders, and you can also have ones with a bit of color. Now, there are a couple of styles that you can give to each border, and the values are the following. Okay, we have here dotted, dashed, solid, blue, solid, double, a groove, rich, inset, outset, none, hidden. So all of these border style properties these are just like the values that are going to make your borders look a little bit different. Okay, so let's go ahead and let me just show you exactly what do we mean by using the different type of borders. Here are just a couple of examples, but as you all know, I always like to use the Visual Studio Code, and I like to code this stuff up so that you can see it and you can actually work around with it and then try it out in your website. So let's go back to our index file, and first of all, what we're gonna do is we're going to add let's add just a couple of paragraphs here. Okay, now I'm going to add here a paragraph, and we're going to say this is border 1, or let's just name them. This is let's just say this is a border example. Okay, and we're going to style this. Now to style this, what's the syntax that we have to use? Of course, we have to use border style, and then we have to name what type of style do we want our border to be like. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that on our CSS style sheet. But before, let's save this in our HTML document, and let's refresh our website content. And there you go. This is a border example, so perfect. That's saved. Now let's go to our CSS style sheet, and let's take a look and see what borders can do for us. First thing we're gonna try is the dotted border. Now here, if you scroll a little bit down, you have the border style, and you can go ahead and definitely just say what type of border you want your element or your content to have, right? So let's use the dotted border. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I am going to open this up, border style. Okay, and then I will use dotted. Okie dokie. Okay, dotted, and of course I need to make sure that I select the element that I want this applied to. So in this case it's the P tag, right? So I'm gonna hit save and I'm going to hit refresh. And there you go. So this is the example of the border that you will see if you go ahead and you use the dotted style border, okay? So we can go ahead and we can do the same with different type of borders. So let's just do 2 more, and then I will leave you the homework to try them out, every single one of them by your own. Now, I'm going to add 3 paragraphs here. Okay, 3, and then I will give them a class. I'm going to give them a class of border 1, and then I will give this one a class of border 2, and finally the third one, guess what's that gonna be? Of course it's the class of border 3. There you go. Now we're gonna hit save, and this is going to be applied to the class, right? So we're gonna put here a dot, and we're gonna call border 1. We're gonna hit save, and this shouldn't change this this example, because all I'm doing is just deselecting all paragraphs, and I'm just selecting the specific border class number 1, right? We already went through the selectors, so if you don't remember about that, I just want you to go back to our first couple of tutorials and just take a look at that. In fact, I can leave the link in the description of this video as well. So let's hit refresh, and there you go. So you see the first border is the same because we just apply the dotted border to our first paragraph, and then we have 2 other paragraphs which we haven't applied a border to. So let's go ahead and let's do the second one. Let's apply this to the border, to the class border 2, and let's give it another border style, border style, of course, and yeah, let's say dashed. Actually, let's use one of the examples that you see here. Yeah, so dashed. Actually, let's use something, let's use the solid one, so it can look like this one right here. So I'm going to use solid. There you go. And then let's apply to the third one a different style, and this is going to be called class number 3, and we're going to apply the style of none. So this one doesn't have any border. Okay, just so you can see how this looks like. Okay, I'm going to save this information now. We're going to go back to our website, and now I am going to hit refresh. And boom, there you go. So this one has the dotted border, then this one has a solid border, as you can see all the way through, and this one does not have any border because I used the value of none. Okay, so that's what borders are, okay, and this is what you can do with them. Now go ahead and actually play around yourself and see what type of borders you want to use and try them out, because that's the only way that you're going to remember every single one of these borders, and that's the only way that you're actually going to start learning CSS well. Okay, so now moving on borders, let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit about the border's width. So what is a border width? The border width property, and by the way, the previous one that we just talked about, it was border style. We gave just the style here. If we go back to borders, this border style, it gives the style of the border that we want. Now the border width, it's another property that is going to specify the width of our border itself, of each border. Now this can be in a specific side, like pixels. You can use centimeters, and you can use much more. Okay, so let's take a look and see what does the border width does. We have here a couple of examples. So with border width, you're going to give the size that you want to your border. So let's go ahead and try it out so you can see a couple of examples here. The first thing that we're going to use for the first one that we have here for border 1, okay, we want to say that our border width is going to be, as I said before, you can go ahead and you can use different type of sizes. However, I am going to use the first thing, which is going to be the value of thick, this one right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that one out. Thick. I'm going to save this. Now we're going to go back to our website, and this dotted border is going to change. It's going to be thick now, the border. So let's hit refresh, and boom, there you go. You see now all the small dots actually are bigger, right? Because it's thicker, obviously. Okay, so now let's go and let's do another one. Let's apply some pixels to the border width. Okay, so border, we're going to say border width. I want this to be 100 pixels. Let's see what that's going to do to our code. Okay, so let's hit refresh. I'm sorry, save, and I'm gonna hit refresh. And wow, you see how much is this width? Like, this is a huge width for our border. So definitely, I mean, if you're going to use this later on, just be careful in the width that you're applying to it. Like if we go ahead and we move this around to 5 pixels, I guess this border is going to be looking a lot better. There you go. So you see 5 pixel, it's a little bit thicker, but it's not like that huge of a border thickness, you know. So go ahead and play around with the pixels. You can do that. Another size that you can apply to your borders, it's PT. You can apply centimeters, as I said before. You can go ahead and you can apply EM. You can go ahead and you can apply different type of measurements in here. The ones that I prefer to use the most is pixels, and sometimes I use PT, which is point values. Okay. So yeah, that's what you do with borders. Now the last one, we're going to change this and we're going to apply a border style of, let's just do something here. Let's do groove. I'm going to hit save and let's hit refresh. Okay, so you see that border right there? It just changed. And now we're going to give it a border width, border width. And let's say that the border width is going to be for about 10 points. Okay, so let's hit save and I'm going to hit refresh, and there you go. You see how this looks like. If I go ahead and I change this to pixels, it'll definitely do also something here. It's going to definitely change it to pixels, not to points, right? And you can go ahead and play around with that. You can use cm for centimeters, and you can hit save and then refresh, and then you see how huge that is on centimeters. So you can play around with all this. I am just going to explain you know, just a couple of them. So centimeters are very, very big here on the web. So you can go ahead and you can even say 0.5. You don't want it to be that big, and it'll obviously reduce the size. So that's what you can do with the borders width. There are a couple of things that I do want to explain on border widths. And one of them is that for each size of your border, you can definitely apply a different type of pixels or a different type of measurement or a different type of size. So let me give you an example here. I am going to remove here the centimeter, and we are going to say that we want 1 pixel. We're going to say actually that we want 5 pixels. Then and this is going to be applied for the top, as you can see. So the first pixel is going to be applied for the top, then the next one is to the right, then the next one to the bottom, and then the next one to the left. So what this is doing is that it's applying the size like this to the top, then to the right, then to the bottom, then to the left. Now let me just show you what do I mean by this, okay, so that you can see it and you can understand. So I'll say 5 pixels to the top, 1 pixel to the right, then on the bottom I want this to be 10 pixels, and then on the left I want this to be 15 pixels, okay? and I'm going to close this and I'm going to save this. So my third border is definitely going to change right now. Check it out. There you go. So you see, and in fact, you know what? I am going to apply all this. Let's just leave this in, I don't know, 1 pixel, whatever, right? And I'm going to apply this to our solid border number 2. So I'm going to hit refresh and boom, there you go. So you see the top of my border now is 5 pixels. The right is only 1 pixel. Okay, you see how thin? Then the bottom, as you can see, is 10 pixels. And the left side is 15 pixels. Now, if I change the left to 1 pixel, I hit save. Now both of my border, the left and the right, is going to be thin. So check it out. You see? So you can definitely play around with this and you can control a little bit more which portion of your border you want it to be this way or that way. Like if we go ahead and we say that we want our bottom to be 0 pixels, we can do that as well. 0 pixels, and then you hit refresh, and then it's not going to have any border in the bottom because it doesn't have any pixels, right? So that's how you can go ahead and actually play around with the borders with a little bit more. So I hope that helps. Now moving on, let's go back to W3 schools, and we're gonna get into the border colors. Okay, now you know how to apply a border style. Now you know how to change the width of your border on each size. And finally, we have reached the other property, which is going to give your border a color, right? Now you say, hey, I don't want this border, this solid border, to look just black, you know, I want this to be in a different type of color. Well, you can do that with the border color property. Okay, so how do you do that? There we go. So the border color property is used to set the color of the 4 borders that you have. The 4 borders, obviously, top, right, bottom, left, right? You can do it by naming it red. You can use HEX, RGB, HSL. You can set it up to transparent, however you want. We saw all these in our colors, our CSS colors tutorial. So you can go ahead and actually take a look at that and learn a little bit more if you are not familiar with this right now. Okay, so here we're giving a color of red, here green, here blue. So let's go ahead and change them. This is going to be the results for each one. Let's see the results for our borders. Okay, let's go back to our code. Now here I'm going to give it 10 pixels so that you can see a little bit better how this border is going to change. Okay, so the first one, we want to give it a border color of, let's say, red. Then the second one, we're going to apply a border color. Let's do an RGB and let's set this up to 255. Let's say 255 and let's say 255 for all 3 of them. Let's see what color we get. We're gonna get white, as you can see. So let's just change this one right here. Let's do, I don't know, let's do 63. Just like that, okay? And it's gonna change obviously to 24, 63, 63, which gives us kind of like a pink. We can also go ahead and set it up to be kind of like a purple, like that. Okay, so I'm gonna hit save, and now I'm going to hit refresh. Okay, so you see this one has changed. This one is red. Now the second one hasn't changed because I didn't close it properly. So remember to go ahead and actually close it properly. Okay, so let's hit refresh again, and there you go. Now this one is kind of purple. Okay, so let's do this for the third one. Now we're going to apply a border. Now we're going to apply a border color of blue. Okay, let's hit save, and now let's hit refresh. And there you go. Now the third border has the color blue on it. So as simple as that is, that's how you apply colors to your borders. Moving on, we're going to get into sides. the border sides. So each border, as I was explaining before, has an individual side, right? So here, there are also properties for each border size, like top, right, bottom, and left. As you can see here, we can see an example in what does this mean. Now, I am going to go back to my index HTML file here, and I'm going to create a new paragraph, and I'm going to give it a class of border 4, and I'm definitely going to say to this, let's go ahead and let's say this is border 4444, whatever, just because, you know. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh our content here, and we have here border 4444. Now, to this border in particular, we're going to play around with the sides of the border. As you can see, we can change each side with the width, and we can definitely do it applying certain properties for each side. So we have border top style, border right style, border bottom style, and border left style. So for each border side, you can go ahead and you can style it. You can give it a different type of width. You can give it a different type of color, whatever you want. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is say borders. We're gonna use the border style. Then we're probably going to be using something a little bit different. Actually, we're going to be using probably the border color. Now, here's a quick note before we go ahead and we show this in Visual Studio Code. The border style property is used in the example above. However, it also works with border width and border color, which is what I was just explaining right now, that you can use the border sides for not only the style, but also to apply different colors and different width to it. We already saw the width, but now we're gonna take a look into this a little bit better. Okay, so let's do that. So to the style sheet, we're going to add a new border, which is going to be border number 4. Let's call border number 4. And to this border, what I want to do, let's save this first. Make sure this is not changing. Okay, it's not changing, so that's perfect because we haven't applied any style to border 4. We are going to style the top. We are going to style the top. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Border top style. That's what we are going to use. Okay. So what do you say? Border top. And then we're going to say style, right? Okay. So now to the border style. Let's say that we want, that we want this border to be dashed. Then we're gonna use the border, let's use the border right, bottom, and then left. Okay, right style. In this one, we are going to say it's gonna be solid. And then border bottom style. And this one is going to be groove. And finally, the border left, right? Okay, so border left. And obviously, we're also going to use the style of this. And we're going to say that we want this to be dotted. So we have dash, solid, groove, and dotted. Okay, top, right, bottom, left. So we're gonna hit save to this, and let's go ahead and see the result here. Hit refresh, and boom, there you go. You see, now the top is dashed, the right side is solid, the bottom is groove, and then the left side is dotted. So that's how you will apply your style to each border differently. Now we can do the same thing with widths. But I want to show you actually a different thing that you can do because to the border number 4, you can also say this. Well, to the width that you know that to make it a short code, to actually write the code a little bit short, what we're gonna use is just border width, and then we're going to apply whatever pixels we want. So the top is gonna have 10 pixels, the right is gonna have only 1 pixel, the bottom is gonna have 10 pixels, and then the left is gonna have 1 pixel. So then you can see what this is going to do. Let's hit refresh, and boom, there you go, you see? So top and bottom, 10 pixels, left and right, only 1 pixels. Actually, let's make them at least 5 so that you can see this. Okay, 5, and let's hit save. And let's hit refresh, and now it looks a little bit better. Okay, so that's what you can do with border width. Now with border colors, you can apply the same concept. Okay, so let me show you right now. Border color, and we're going to say the top is going to be red, black is going to be, or let's say blue is going to be the right, then the bottom is going to be red, or actually let's say it's going to be purple, and then the left is going to be yellow, purple, and then of course yellow. And then let's just hit save, and let's see. Boom, there you go. So that's how you can also use the border each side. Okay, so I hope the border sides, now it's a little bit easier for you. If you have any questions, remember you can always leave them in the comment section below. As soon as I read them, I will reply to you. Okay, now let's move on to the next one, which is the border shorthand. Well, the border shorthand is just how to write your code shorter. And I showed you before in border sides how you can do this in border width, and also how you can do this in border color property. So the shorthand to apply this as well to the style is the same. So if I want to write all this in a short code for borders, it's very simple. All I have to do is say to my code border, and then I want to call the style property, right? So border style, and then remember, to the top is the first thing that you want to apply. So let's say dashed. Then we go to the right, and it's going to be solid. Then we go to the bottom, which is going to be groove, and finally to the left, which is going to be dotted, right? That's the shorthand that you can write your code, and how you can write your code. So I'm going to erase all this because we do not need this any longer. Okay, now I haven't saved this yet. I want you to see first how does this looks like before me saving the code. So as soon as I hit save here, and I'm doing this right now, my code now here, when I hit refresh, it shouldn't change because I wrote exactly the same thing. So let's go ahead and let's refresh. And boom, you see, I already saved the information, and this didn't change because I saved this the same way, but in the shorter version of a written code. Now I want you to see that this works, and I'm going to change the top of my border to groove, and the left side, instead of dotted, is going to be also solid. Okay, now I'm gonna hit save, and let's hit refresh, and boom, you see now we have top and bottom groove, left and right is solid. And that's how you shorthand write your code. Okay, let's move on, and let's talk now about rounded borders. What are rounded borders? I think that the word itself explains everything to you. It's a border which is rounded, right? But how can we make this happen? Well, for this, let's go ahead and use another example here in our code. I'm going to create another paragraph here in our HTML index file, and we're going to give it a class of border 5, and let's close this, and we're going to say this is the rounded border. Okay, let's hit save, and let's see here. Okay, now let's go ahead and see how do we round our borders. Okay, so we do this by using the property border radius. That's what we use to round the borders of an element. Okay, so this is a normal border, this is a rounded border, rounded border, rounded border, right? And the way that we apply the border radius is very simple. It's just by applying some different type of pixels, right? So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the border pixels that you can go ahead and actually use to round the border. Going back to my style, now we are going to call, now we are going to call, we're going to copy all this information here, we're going to paste it, and we're going to say this is going to be the class number 5. Instead of border width, let's leave the colors, and actually to the border style, I just want to make everything solid this time. And the width, I want to apply the same width to all sides, so I'm going to leave this all of them at 10 pixels. Because if you only leave one value inside your width or inside your style, then the code is understanding that you want this applied to all 4 edges of your border. Okay, so let's hit save, and only the colors are going to be the crazy ones here. Okay, so let's hit refresh. There you go. And in fact, I want this to be a little bit different than the one that we have on top. We want to actually move the colors. Let's just do all this in blue. Yeah, let's just leave it in blue, and let's hit save. Now let's hit refresh, and there you go. Now our 5th border is going to be blue, all of it. And the pixels, by the way, let's do actually something of 5 pixels. Okay, now I'm gonna hit save. Okay, that looks a lot better. Perfect. So now we're going to be using the new property to round our border, which is called border radius. And we're just going to apply some pixels to it. Let's apply some 10 pixels to our border radius. Let's hit save, and now let's hit refresh. And boom, you see? Now it's kind of rounded. All the corners are a little bit rounded. If you want this to be like more like a circle, you can apply more pixels to it. Instead of 10, let's apply double. Let's apply 20 to it. Let's hit save, and now let's hit refresh. And you see it's rounding itself a little bit more. Okay, and that's how 20 pixels looks like. I am going to just keep playing around with this. We can go ahead and we can make this border small. We can apply 2 pixels to it, and going back here, if you see, I just hit refresh and it changed. It's a little bit more square now. Same thing happens if I go ahead and I go back to 20 pixels, so let's say 25 pixels, I hit save, and it's obviously rounding the corners a little bit more. So you can go ahead and actually play around with this. I hope that you understand how rounded borders work. And I guess this is all that I am going to explain here, and all that I am pretty sure you're going to need to know when you're using CSS borders. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about borders, how to do shorthand code, or how to write borders in shorthand a little bit more, you can visit W3 Schools. You can read the entire section of border shorthand in there, and you can also read a little bit more about rounded borders, or about colors, or width, or sides, whatever you want. Now, one thing that I do want to let you know is that there are definitely more things that you can go ahead and you can study here in this website. So I am teaching you the basics so that you can go ahead and you can actually learn a little bit more by your own. Remember that it's only you, the one that it's capable of making yourself the best developer that has ever existed in this earth. But oh well, I'm here just to teach you a couple of lessons. The job now is in your hands. You know what to do with the knowledge that you have now. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope that you have liked this video, everyone. If you like it, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And as well, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if this video is useful for you or for some other friends, if you don't mind sharing the video, that'll be awesome. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave them in the comment section below, and I will reply as soon as I can. Because remember that you can always ask Lixi. Bye everyone, and see you again in the next episode.